of the greatest team the world has ever known, the Space Sentinels.
Introduction. The 70s were a wild time for sure, and the same can be said for most of the animated works released during that decade. Sci-fi was all the rage, and everyone, including kids and adults, were going gaga over the exciting genre. Star Wars did change the world of sci-fi with a bang, and a number of new shows started production, all hoping that they would be the next Star Wars. Hopping onto this train, Space Sentinels aired between September and December 1977, and received considerable critical acclaim for the dramatic storyline and intense action scenes. While the series received less overall screen time than most other superhero stuff, it's left behind a sparkling legacy in the world of superhero animation. In today's episode, let's take a look at the fascinating world of Space Sentinels, and you can decide for yourselves if this series deserves a present-day spin-off. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Born in the wake of a sci-fi blockbuster, Space Sentinels, 1977. Mind you, there was tough competition among prominent American TV channels like CBS, ABC, and NBC to launch the next superhero series. The show was originally titled Young Sentinels and was changed only midway through the season, mainly because the showrunners wanted to harness the Star Wars aficionados through a more sci-fi-esque name. Produced by Filmation, it used to air on NBC every Saturday morning, which was the peak airtime for these shows since their target audience was children and young adults. As a result, values and virtues such as friendship and teamwork, tolerance, and very importantly, environmental awareness were the central plots of many such shows. In fact, a lot of the villains in these shows were portrayed as misguided instead of being just outright evil. Well, the environmental awareness didn't have much of an effect, but hey, these people were just doing their jobs, right? Space Sentinels had a classic opening narration, thank you Star Wars, which explained the superheroes' origins and missions. 3 people from Earth were carefully selected and transported to a faraway world, where they had received their powers as well as eternal youth. Their job? Protecting mankind and watching over the Earth. It's also mentioned that over the course of history, the names of these superheroes have become legends. Each of the members of the group was associated with a certain quality. Hercules, for example, became synonymous with the strength of 100 men. Mercury became a symbol of immense speed, and Astrea became almost a mythical legend who could attain any form. The narrator is none other than Sentinel One, a sentient computer being who is sort of the supervisor of the group. He also acts as their mentor, and it's revealed that the Earthlings were transported to his home far away where they got their respective powers. He has a maintenance robot named MO, short for Maintenance Operator, and who's a close replica of R2-D2, and they formed the greatest superhero group the world has ever known, the Space Sentinels. It is, however, also implied that the Space Sentinels are just the group that oversees the Earth, and other similar groups handle different planets. You may have drawn a connection between the names of the titular characters with actual human mythology. Good observation. Hercules and Mercury were definitely inspired by Greek and Roman myths. Hercules was a Greek demigod, the son of Zeus, known to be the strongest man of all time. Mercury was the Roman god of messengers, the equivalent of Hermes from Greek mythology, who was, for obvious reasons, a considerably speedy guy. Astrea was also a Greek goddess of justice, purity, and innocence, but the writers didn't exactly bring this into the character. But wait, can justice even be considered a superpower? Maybe for Superman, but hey, that's a discussion for another day. That being said, the way the characters looked was certainly diverse and definitely not Greco-Roman, maybe except Hercules, who is shown to be your usual tall, tanned, muscular guy with flowy blonde hair. Mercury has Asian features, while Astrea is definitely African American. Also, did you know that Astrea is actually the first female black superhero on television? Moreover, she was technically the leader of the Space Sentinels. Considering that it was the 70s, this kind of representation is certainly a little odd to come across, but welcome nonetheless. It was also mentioned by the showrunners that while casting for the voice actors, the producers tried to keep the characters' ethnicities in mind to give a more realistic output. The base of operations for this group was in a spacecraft inside a dormant volcano, which also doubled as their living quarters. Their missions are almost always located on Earth, and they are launched into the air through vertical tubes, after which they can fly via rocket belts in their suits to their respective destinations. It is, however, implied that Mercury is faster than this technology. Their suits are shown to have intercontinental range as well as hypersonic ability. Some of their missions take them far away from Earth to other planetary bodies, in which case Sentinel One transports them within the spacecraft, which is supposedly faster than the speed of light. Norm Prescott produced almost all of the Filmation shows in the 1970s, and Space Sentinels was no exception. He used his pseudonym Jeff Michael to produce the show, but there is some contention as to how much he was creatively involved with running the series. The theme and the background music was also handled by Prescott and Ray Ellis. It's worthy to mention here that Prescott, along with Lou Scheimer and Hal Sutherland, had a ton of experience with producing cartoons such as Popeye, as well as producing advertisements for Gillette. Lou Scheimer, the founder of Filmation, is hailed as a visionary when it comes to children's cartoons. That being said, Space Sentinels received a rather frigid response in America. The producers probably had big hopes for the series, maybe even wishing it to overtake the popularity of Star Wars, but it was argued that the villain characters lacked that component of evil complexity, which arguably made any superhero show even more exciting and nail-biting. The show ran for only 13 episodes, half an hour each. It was released on VHS tapes in the 1980s and on DVD in 2006. Galactic Guardians. Meet the Space Sentinels. Space Sentinels certainly had its fair share of fans, and for good reason too. The show had everything a good sci-fi series needs: intrigue, drama, some comedy, mysterious villains, an enigmatic superhero supervisor, if you will, a robot, plenty of action, and inclusion. Now that you don't see in most superhero stuff. The characters of Space Sentinels each had a unique flavor to themselves, which is important to explore in light of today's sci-fi scenario. Let us get right into it. Sentinel One. Probably the most enigmatic character in Space Sentinels, Sentinel One, nicknamed S1, is a sentient supercomputer embedded into the spaceship where the Space Sentinels reside and work out of. Consider it 70's AI, if you will. Essentially, it monitors every situation, alerts the team about problems and issues, provides valuable information during missions, and pretty much acts as a sort of supervisor. Sentinel One is physically displayed as a large, holographic, and hairless head projected within the spacecraft. While it's mentioned that the Space Sentinels were given their powers and their eternal youth as well as trained in its homeland, it is not revealed where this homeland actually is. Very little is known about it, which makes the character quite mysterious, leaving the audience wanting more. He's not the only Sentinel computer in the series. It's shown that there is a female Sentinel 7, as well as the Prime Sentinel, who is the supreme commander of all the Sentinel computers. Prime Sentinel is shown as an older and bearded simulated and holographic head.
Hercules, empowered with the strength of 100 men.
Hercules. As mentioned earlier, the character of Hercules is heavily inspired by the Greco-Roman legend of Hercules, who was the strongest man in the world. Now, it is to be noted that even within Greco-Roman mythology, there are differing accounts about the life and trials of Hercules, but it's universally accepted that he was the demigod who was later granted godhood due to his powers. In Space Sentinels, the origins of Hercules are also a little mysterious. He's shown to be a normal teenager who was handpicked by the cosmic sentient being known as Sentinel One in order to be granted powers and eternal youth and be trained to be a protector of the Earth and humanity. Hercules is a tanned, heavily muscular man with blonde hair, who possesses immense strength that can rival that of 100 men. Hercules is shown to have joined another superhero group called the Freedom Force later on. He's also shown to later become a part of the Immortal Elders and gives a young Billy Batson guidance on certain occasions. Hercules is quite obsessed with eating healthy foods and exercising. He was voiced by George DeCenzo.
I'm going right through that door.
Mercury. Just like Hercules, Mercury's character is also inspired by Roman mythology. Mercury is the Roman god of messengers, and due to the nature of his duties, speed is an essential component of his powers. Mercury is the Roman avatar of the Greek god Hermes, who was a son of Zeus. Similar to Hercules, Mercury was a normal teenager until he was chosen by Sentinel One to be one of Earth's defenders and a space sentinel. He was given the superpower of speed and eternal youth. Mercury's adventures later took on a legendary status due to his super speed, and it's mentioned that he served in the Space Sentinels as late as 1985. He also became part of the Immortal Six later on and imparted his power and wisdom to Billy Batson. In Space Sentinels, Mercury is shown as an Asian man with black hair. He was voiced by Evan Kim. This is in stark contrast with how the Greco-Roman avatar of Mercury looked. In the Immortal Six, however, he is shown to have blonde hair and blue eyes. Astrea. Astrea, the leader of the Space Sentinels, was chosen by Sentinel One to be one of the protectors of humanity. She was granted the power to morph into any living animal, along with eternal youth. Essentially, her superpower is being a shapeshifter. While the character's name is derived from Greek mythology, not much about her superpowers or abilities match the same. Astrea is the first female African-American superhero on television, a fact that was possible only due to the progressive attitude of Filmation's founder and producers. She was one of the few black superheroes altogether of the time, along with Black Vulcan from Super Friends. The character was voiced by Dee Timberlake. MO. Short for Maintenance Operator, MO was the robot who lived aboard the spacecraft of the Space Sentinels and served Sentinel One. He had assisted Sentinel One in transporting the teenage Earthlings to the latter's home planet, and had stood by as they were conferred their respective powers as well as eternal youth. The character of MO is clearly based on Star Wars R2-D2, except that the former speaks fluent American English. Voiced by Filmation founder Lou Scheimer, MO often acts as the comic relief in the series due to its infatuation with Astria.
There's only two of you. Where's Mercury?
Morpheus. The origin of the character of Morpheus, also known as the Sinister Sentinel, is somewhat hazy. He is revealed to have been a farmer on a planet similar to Earth, after which he was selected by Sentinel One to be a member of the Space Sentinels. Interestingly, he was conferred not just one, but all three powers that the current Space Sentinels shared among themselves: super strength, super speed, and shapeshifting. It's shown later that he turned evil and decided to misuse his powers and abilities. As a result of this, he's shown to have escaped into space and been MIA until the 20th century. His return is aimed at stealing Sentinel One's program to replicate it in order to attain universal domination. However, his plans are thwarted by the current Space Sentinels. If you think about it, Morpheus was initially Sentinel One's plan for saving mankind and Earth, but due to him turning evil, Sentinel One did not make the mistake of conferring all superpowers on one person again, and instead conferred the three different powers on three people. Anubis. The producers of Space Sentinels sure liked mythology. Anubis is the god of death in Egyptian mythology, and also a son of Osiris. This is shown to be true even in the series, but with a twist. Anubis is actually an alien from a different planet, who had created a technology called Power Pyramid, which had wiped out his home planet. His arrival to Earth was during the time of the Egyptian civilization, where the locals were so scared of him that they attacked and buried him inside a stone structure. It is hinted that this is the event that gave the Egyptians the idea to construct the pyramids. Now, obviously the Egyptians were not attacked by aliens back then, and the pyramids are simply a result of amazing engineering, no matter how primitive. But it is quite interesting how the producers of the show attempt to tie loose ends through their narratives. But back to Space Sentinels. Anubis is awakened 5,000 years later by archaeologists. He attacks them and the city of Giza and is then confronted by the Space Sentinels. Sentinel One attempts to contact him through this power pyramid, but Anubis in turn sends the power pyramid to destroy Sentinel One. When the Space Sentinels attack him, he is struck by their powers. Later, he agrees to go back to a non-destroyed version of his home planet and to undo the damage he caused on Earth. Defending Earth, a look inside Space Sentinels episodes. The very first episode of Space Sentinels begins with the introduction of the three characters as well as Sentinel One. This form of narration-led beginning of episodes is arguably a feature borrowed from Star Wars. After all, in a galaxy far, far away is nothing short of legendary. The sinister Sentinel Morpheus is introduced as soon as the episode starts. He is shown wandering the universe in his spaceship, looking for planets to make use of. However, his primary aim is to find Sentinel One, reconfigure the program, and build his version of Sentinel One, and thus take over the universe. The Space Sentinels notice a strange meteor fly towards the Earth and hit the ground a little too close to where they reside. When they arrive at the location, they realize that the meteor seems to exert a force greater than the Earth's gravitational pull, and it takes them a while to bring that under control. However, when they finally approach the meteor, it seems to vanish and leave behind only a small rock. Astrea suggests taking the mysterious rock to Sentinel One to study it. Unbeknownst to them, all of this was a ploy by Morpheus to find the real location of Sentinel One. Once the Space Sentinels are back at their ship, Morpheus begins his trail and tries to get inside it. He is, however, almost caught by Sentinel One's sensors when he shapeshifts to a lizard and finally makes his way inside. He is surprised to see how well MO works and how he practically knows everything about Sentinel One, and abandoning his earlier plan, he considers taking MO away to reprogram Sentinel One through the robot's features. He makes a narrow escape with MO, but is chased by the Space Sentinels. Cleverly, he makes his way down below the sea where he has hidden his spacecraft. Astrea manages to get MO back, but the damage is done. Morpheus has created his version of multiple Sentinel Ones, and the actual Sentinel One starts malfunctioning in the Space Sentinel ship as a result. As MO starts to work on reconfiguring S1, the three heroes are tasked with stopping Morpheus. Sentinel One recovers and communicates with the reconfigured sentient computers Morpheus has created, and in turn transports him to deep space where he can no longer be a harm to others. The Space Sentinels return in triumph. The second episode, Space Giants, opens in a slightly different fashion. A desert nomad is seen playing the mouth organ with his donkey by the side when suddenly robot-like creatures parachute down from space into the middle of the Milwaukee desert. They are almost 18 meters tall and weigh 100 tons. The man looks on in amazement and fear as the robots assume their giant shape and start moving across the desert. Back at the Space Sentinels base, Astrea is busy tending to a wounded bird when Sentinel One informs them of abnormal tremors in the desert. It's mentioned that the San Andreas Fault is located along the desert, and tremors that are too powerful can lead to a full-blown earthquake. The three superheroes go back to the desert and try to find the things that led to the tremors, only to find giant robots heading toward a government gold depository. When they try to stop them, an alien named Zyra operating one robot says that what humans call gold is actually what they use as fuel for their spaceships. Their ships are just outside the Earth's orbit and are dangerously low on fuel. Hence, they need to take all the gold they can. Now that sounds like utter baloney, but well, let's see what happens next. Astrea manages to intercept one of the robots and disable it from inside, but she's left with no way out, and Mercury and Hercules are stunned into not being able to move. Finally, with the help of Sentinel One, they're also able to free themselves and pursue the robots. Astrea realizes that the alien image is nothing but a trick. Zyra is just a thief who wants to sell the gold to the black market. We knew it. However, the situation turns grim when the robots created by Zyra gain self-awareness and refuse to cooperate with her anymore and proceed to create a perfect world only inhabited by machines. The robots start extracting metals from rocks and building an army to take over the world and start marching toward the city of Dawson. Come on, Zyra, has Terminator taught you nothing? Sentinel One points out that the only way to stop the army is to create tremors strong enough to cause the San Andreas Fault to crack and cause a massive earthquake in the desert. The three superheroes get to work, and with a lot of effort and perseverance, manage to stop the robot army from taking over the world. The third episode of Space Sentinels, titled The Time Traveler, takes Astrea and us on a trip to a future where the moon base mission never happened. A man named Cronus, again with the Greek mythology guys, come on, arrives from the future seemingly with the power to put people to sleep. He intercepts the International Moon Base mission, and it attracts the attention of Sentinel One, who asks the Space Sentinels to take a look at the base. Sentinel One says that although the mission was unmanned, there was virtually no way it could have gone sideways, which means someone must have manhandled it. Once Astrea, Mercury, and Hercules arrive at the launch zone, they are shocked to see that all the guards are asleep. They find Cronus stealing the moonbase cassette and try to stop him, but unfortunately are also put to sleep. Astrea, however, shapeshifts into a small bird and accompanies Cronus to the future. Cronus informs his superior that the moonbase project has failed in the past, and he has plans with him as well, and thinks about how being a national hero will affect him. Astrea tries to sneak out with the plans, but is discovered by Cronus. Cronus reveals that he is from a race of aliens who are considered too warlike. In the future, where the moonbase mission had gone well, the peaceful people of Earth received a lot of valuable knowledge from a different species of aliens who favored the Earthlings instead of the warlike people from Cronus's planet. Cronus aims to equip his planet with the information required to make their own moonbase mission so that the knowledge imparted by that species can be theirs instead of the people of the Earth. Astrea, not having any of it, stuns Cronus to sleep using her weapon, steals the time travel belt, and comes back to the past. Or is that the present? Time travel sounds fun in theory, but it's a nightmare for grammar. Once Astrea briefs everyone about the situation, Sentinel One develops a plan to make sure the moonbase mission takes off smoothly, and Cronus fails in his plans. The three superheroes travel to the past before the mission lifts off, and Mercury is tasked with finding the automation devices in the rockets that can make them fail. Astrea and Hercules, on the other hand, follow Cronus through time as they try to stop his plans. After a nail-biting climax, the trio returns to their base in triumph. However, Sentinel One asks for all the time belts to be destroyed, since too little is known about time travel, and overdoing it can alter the laws of nature, leading to unprecedented consequences. The fourth episode of the series, titled The Sorceress, takes the Space Sentinels across another adventure that tests their patience and teamwork. It's another quiet day at the base, and Hercules and MO are testing their skills at badminton. Hercules is losing by a gigantic margin, but just then, Sentinel One interrupts them and informs them that the entirety of the North Pole has vanished into thin air, which could signal the end of the world. This was no accident at all, so the trio decides to check it out for themselves. They discover the North Star and find what remains of the North Pole, and Sentinel One tells them of a magnetic presence. Hercules comes up with the theory that maybe the entire North Pole has moved into another dimension, and Sentinel One says that Mercury could be the key to unlocking this mystery, since his speed is greater than the speed of light, and is thus invisible. Mercury then tries to move past the dimensional barrier, but loses all contact with the rest of the team. However, Sentinel One can still detect him. With Mercury disrupting the dimensional barrier, the polarized caps come back. However, it is shown that Mercury has actually been captured by an ancient sorceress who was the reason behind the disappearance of the North Pole in the first place. She places a spell on Mercury, which makes him reveal to her all about himself and the Space Sentinels. Mercury, under the effect of the spell, starts engaging with Hercules in a fight, while Astrea is captured. The sorceress reveals that she needs a vast amount of energy to power her illusions, but her planet has run out of energy, and she intends to use a new substance discovered by scientists in a laboratory on Earth to power herself. The sorceress shows Astrea how the spells she was using were not spells at all. In fact, they were just illusions that she was controlling to make Mercury and Hercules feel disarrayed. Astrea realizes that the sorceress is part of the electronic device she had built, and thus can be short-circuited into being turned off. However, she is also placed under a similar spell, and then the trio's bodies are duplicated to fetch the energy synthesizer for the sorceress. Astrea is then able to get out of the illusory hold on her, followed by Mercury. Together, they help Hercules get out of the hold as well. At the base, MO and Sentinel One work together to find the source of the power that can generate duplicates of the Space Sentinels and disable it by draining it. As the power synthesizer overloads, Sentinel One says that the only way to keep people safe from its effects is to take it far away from Earth and push the sorceress back to her dimension. With the help of Sentinel One and MO, the Space Sentinels are able to defeat the sorceress and disable the power synthesizer. Just another day at work, if you ask them. Every subsequent episode of Space Sentinels follows a similar storyline. As mentioned already, there's an episode featuring Anubis, the mythical Egyptian god who has a change of heart towards the end after witnessing the efforts of the three superheroes. There's also an episode where Loki, the Norse god of mischief, is referenced. The producers of the show clearly enjoyed mythology and playing around with famous characters. Cult classic or forgotten gem? Space Sentinels has a gone too soon sort of emotion for the fans of the show. It might not be appropriate to call it a cult classic, although it had plenty of features, especially the diversity of the characters and the blend of mythology with futuristic elements, that make fans argue that it holds a similar position. Immediately after the run of the show, fan clubs and forums sprang up and to an extent still keep the show alive today. The main reason why the show fizzed off is because it could not keep up with the appeal that the other shows of the period had on audiences. But let's face it, Space Sentinels is not getting a spin-off anytime soon. Marvelous verdict. The innovative storytelling approach was probably what glued young audiences to the television when Space Sentinels used to air. I mean, you have mythology, ancient magic, space exploration, time travel, and other hallmarked sci-fi elements that are bound to create a special attraction for the show. The crowded Saturday morning lineup was a competitive arena, and Space Sentinels sure did a good job during the period of its limited run with its unique concept and inclusionary nature. Filmation certainly did a good job with this show, and it's a pity it didn't run for much longer. Well, that will be it for today. All you 60s and 70s kids, did you take a walk down memory lane along with us? If this series has caught your attention, you know where to find the remaining episodes. Good luck and Godspeed. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.